So we've went over the New York Yankees. We've went over the Baltimore Orioles versus the Toronto Blue Jays moving into the 2025 season. Today, let's take a look at the Boston Red Sox and how they compare to the 2025 Toronto Blue Jays.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. As always, I'm Braden Iwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Iwasco. Carter First, too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. If you're new here to YouTube or you're listening anywhere else, make sure you drop a subscription to us on the YouTube channel. And the fantasy league is kicking off on Sunday. That's when the draft is. So those of you, make sure that if you're playing, make sure you're tuned in and ready to go for that draft. Discord link is down in the description. So you guys can chat Blue Jays with us any time of day. Shorts will be coming back. Shorts, reels, TikToks, all that, game by game breakdown. After every game, we will be getting back onto that. Any big news will be there as well. So make sure you guys are following us on all the other accounts as well as our Twitters. Twitters is the big thing. And we'll be going sort of throughout the games. Everything, if we have some ideas, we'll throw them out there. Live stream opening day. Carter will be taking you guys through the live stream. I'll be joining him a little bit late because I got to work, but I will be tuned into the game as well. And then I'll jump on the live as soon as I get back. And we can sort of go through it all together. So make sure you guys tune into the Locked On Blue Jays channel on the 27th, where the Blue Jays face the Baltimore Orioles. But Carter, let's start it off today. Red Sox, Blue Jays. Let's go over their lineup. I've said it. I've put it out there last podcast. The Boston Red Sox are my dark horse AL East winners this year. And we'll get into sort of why I think that and everything sort of closer into the second segment. We're going to start talking about their lineups. We'll move into their pitching staff. And we got to talk a little bit about Alec Manoah in the third segment as well. Just how he's feeling. When are we expecting to see him back? So we'll get into all of this on today's episode. Carter, let's kick things off. The Boston Red Sox lineup with their additions from the offseason throughout their entire lineup. How do you feel? Just in general, Boston Red Sox. What do you think of my AL East winner take?
I think that's not who I would necessarily have. Again, we went over this on our Locked On AL East preview, where we had some people that had the Boston Red Sox, some people had other teams. Boston Red Sox were one of the teams that people had as their division winners. And I would say like the Blue Jays in a sense. It's, again, obviously a little bit different, but I think they can be really, really good, or they can be kind of like just okay in the middle of the pack here. One thing I will argue is that the Boston Red Sox, I think they have a much higher floor than the Toronto Blue Jays. I also think they have a higher ceiling than the Toronto Blue Jays. But I can see a scenario where the Boston Red Sox win 90 to 95 games, but I could also see a scenario where they kind of win 80 to 85. Whereas the Toronto Blue Jays, I can see a scenario where they win 85 to 90. I could also see a scenario where they win around 80 baseball games. So probably the most two like volatile organizations in the AL East, where like you have these higher ceilings, but you also have these scenarios where they could be underperforming greatly. When you look at the offseason acquisitions, I think the Boston Red Sox probably had the best offseason in the division. Maybe it's the New York Yankees when you think about like the Garrett Cole injury and then how important that Max Fried signing was to them. You go and get Garrett Crochet, you go and get Alex Bregman, you address your bullpen. You do a lot more than a lot of other teams in this offseason, and a lot more than a lot of other teams in the AL East. So you look at the starting rotation now, you look at this lineup, like you're going to have a lineup. Jared Duran's going to be in there. You're going to have Rafael Devers. You're going to have Tristan Costas. You're going to have Alex Bregman. You have a lot of guys that have been proven to be very good. And we talked about the Boston Red Sox last year. A lot of people had the Boston Red Sox as being one of the worst teams in the AL East, if not the worst team in that AL East. Performed over expectations going 81 and 81. We might be able to see another step considering how much they did to this team and how many acquisitions they did make to round out this roster.
Yeah, they really sort of shocked me, right? I didn't know the direction of that this Red Sox team had. Last year, I a little bit felt like, hey, that might have been a little fluky, but then you see them go all in free agency and get some big pieces to add to this lineup. Obviously, what we think is an overpaid Alex Bregman. But they still got their guy. They got the guy that they wanted, and good on them. So, again, money's meaningless to us. So good on them. Let's go over, Carter, their lineup and sort of talk the way through that and how it compares to the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, Boston Red Sox, again, very deep lineup. I would say it has the most depth out of any team when we're talking about in the AL East. Yeah, well, this is what I have from RotoChamp as their projected lineup going into 2025. So they have Jared Duran leading off, Rafael Devers. That situation is going to be interesting defensively, but he's still going to be very good offensively, obviously, that number 2 spot. And they have Alex Bregman, Tristan Casas, Trevor Story. Right now, it's Wilyer Abreu. It looks like he's probably going to start the season on the IL, so that will change. And then you have Connor Wong, David Hamilton, and Cedar Rafaela. You also have Yoshida, Mr. Yoshida, who is also going to be out to start the season. So you have these guys, again, that are going to be coming back as we progress through the season. We'll round out this lineup a little bit better. Then you have the Toronto Blue Jays. Obviously, that's going to be, I think, George Springer to lead off the year. We're going to have to see how that does fluctuate as well. Then you got your Bo Bichette, your Vladimir Guerrero Juniors. Obviously, go down the list, Santander, Alejandro, Kirk. When you look at, let's focus on the top 4 to start off. You got Jared Duran, Devers, Bregman, and Casas compared to Springer, Bo Bichette, Vladdy, and Santander. Those guys can be flipped around, but those are probably both sides' top 4. How do you compare these two? Do you have the Boston Red Sox? Do you have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the Toronto Blue Jays? How do these two top 4 of their lineups compare?
Well, that's a funny question because I look at the Blue Jays and I think as individuals, the Blue Jays have the better players. But George Springer, the way that he played last year and the way that he's played in spring training really weighs that down. And to have him slotted in tentatively as your leadoff man really, really drags the top 4 down. I think the Boston Red Sox are deeper through their 4, but the Blue Jays are better in their top. If you take out George Springer, the Blue Jays are better. It's just that having 4 guys that can all do something compared to only 3 guys that can do something, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Can George Springer, again, a lot of this hangs on what kind of season George Springer has. And right now, I'm not convinced that he's going to be any good whatsoever.
Yeah, we had him in our top 10, but the way spring training has gone, the way 2024 has gone, not looking good for George Springer. Hopefully he can turn it around. But when you talk about like the top of these lineups, talk about the best player out of all of these teams, I think it has to be Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Yeah. But then after that, like you can argue Bo Bichette, you can argue Anthony Santander, but Jared Duran coming off like an 8-WAR season, really put it all together, had an unbelievable season, stealing over 30 bases. A close 20 home runs. I think he hit 19 last year. But when you have a guy that's just a 5-tool player, playing good defensively, good on the base paths, obviously, but made strides at the plate last year. Jared Duran, very good baseball player. Alex Bregman, going to be a stud defensively, has a pretty solid floor as well. Probably going to hit around 260. Can be another 20 home run hitter. You have Devers, obviously. Pretty comparable to Vladdy. I think Vladdy's upside is a lot better than Devers, but I think if you get Devers on a consistent year, if you're just talking about the average season, I think so far throughout Devers' career, he has been better than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But again, Vladdy's a little bit younger than him. They are similar in age as well. Devers 27, Vladdy 26. It's just as you get throughout this lineup, you go like Trevor Story. That is a huge question mark for me just from a health perspective. But you have Cedar Rafaela coming off a very good year. Connor Wong, who has been good. David Hamilton, a guy that can steal 30 bases as well. I think the biggest difference compared to this Boston Red Sox lineup and the Toronto Blue Jays lineup is when you talked about how they can get better throughout the year and how they have some of these prospects to go and help them out from the season. One of the biggest differences between the Boston Red Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays right now is their prospect systems. Boston Red Sox have the number 3 rated prospect system from MLB.com. The Toronto Blue Jays are at number 27. So very far off on those rankings right there. Looking at the top 100 rated prospects in the league, Boston Red Sox have 4 of them, 3 of them in the top 12. They have Rowan Anthony at number 2, that he's an outfielder. They have Christian Campbell at number 7, second base, shortstop, outfielder, a little bit of a utility guy. They also have Marcelo Meyer at number 12 as a shortstop and Franklin Arias at 75. We look at the only 2 Toronto Blue Jays that are up there. As again, they are going to be good players, or we're hoping they can be good players at least, is Arjun Namala there at 85. You got Trey Savage at 86. But the difference is Rowan Anthony can come in this season and help the Boston Red Sox. If Christian Campbell, he can come in this season and help the Boston Red Sox. Arjun Namala is not coming in this season. Trey Savage is coming in. Again, maybe it's Alan Roden can help this team. Will Wagner can help this team. Morales Martinez can help this team. But these guys are not top 100 prospects. They aren't even, I wouldn't say necessarily that close to top 100 prospects, and definitely not close to top 10 prospects. in all of baseball. So when you have the Boston Red Sox lineup, well, I think it's just a more deep lineup. You have a lot more depth surrounding that lineup. And then you have the possibility of getting some of these top prospects in the MLB who can come in and make an immediate impact. Where you do have some of the younger guys in the Toronto Blue Jays that you hope can make strides. I don't think they nearly provide that upside that some of these Boston Red Sox prospects do.
Yeah, and right, that's something that scares us as Toronto Blue Jays fans moving forward is the lack of a pipeline. And that's what's sad is, yes, there are glimpses of hope. You talk about the Jake Blosses, the Trey Savage, the Argent Malas, the Will Wagners, Relvis Martinez, but you go look at other teams like the Boston Red Sox, and you see how many promising young stars, talent that they have. And that's frustrating because, yes, one of our big guys can go down. Will one of our young guys take that next step? We hope. But how big is that next step, right? We see a possibility in a Relvis Martinez, right? You got a lot of what ifs on this team. We talk about what ifs around Davis Schneider, who has, again, I talk about look good in spring training, but how much can you take away from that? And he's, again, not a top guy that you're thinking is going to go and be the next Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for this team or Bo Bichette, right? That these guys are just not going to be superstars. The closest we have right now is a Relvis Martinez, maybe Will Wagner for specifically this season. And I don't have, after what I've seen in spring training, I don't have a ton of hope for Will Wagner. I think he's going to be fine, but I don't think he's matched my expectations. And a Relvis Martinez, I'm still a little bit unsure. I think all the elements to a good baseball player are there. But when will we see that? Will we see that this year? Will we see that next year or the year after? I don't know. I'm not going to fortune tell for anybody. And with this Red Sox lineup, I think it's just way deeper. There's way less question marks up and down their lineup. You're right. You talk about Trevor's story and the injury bug that he sometimes gets. Will that play a role? It might. The Rafael Devers situation, will it play a role? Maybe. We've heard rumblings that he's been asking for to be traded. Will that happen? I don't know. I don't even know if that's confirmed. Will he play defensively? Will that management group say, too bad, you're going to play DH? We don't know because we don't know what's going on in the locker room. So I think there's a situation that this Boston Red Sox team can be really good if they start off the season winning. But I think if this starts off on a not so good path, I think you're going to see the mentality of these players and as a team sort of start to crumble with all the question marks there are around some of their guys too. So I think the Red Sox are an overall better baseball team when you look at their lineup. But you're right. I don't think they're so far off from what the Jays are for me to say they're my definitive number one. I think they're my dark horse number one candidate, but that's exactly what it is, a little bit of a dark horse pick. So
we've seen a little bit of a flip-flop in these last couple of seasons, but the Toronto Blue Jays have had these massive expectations, supposed to be a top 3 AL team in obviously in the AL, and then obviously supposed to be a top 7 team in the major leagues. Boston Red Sox didn't really have any expectations throughout these last few seasons. Now you're starting to see people put them at the top of the AL East. You're starting to see people hammer that 86.5 win over and put them in the playoffs, put them as the top wildcard seed, put them again. I've even seen some people predict them to win the AL East entirely. So there's a lot of people that are very high on this Red Sox team. And when you look at the expectations that they do have, you do have 3 top 12 prospects, look at the Toronto Blue Jays expectations where you see Will Wagner play 24 games. Yes, he did hit 300, but it's 24 games at the end of a season where, again, they're getting thrown into situations that don't necessarily matter in the long term of things. So I think for Will Wagner, it was kind of impossible to keep up those expectations. I think just people were set up to be disappointed. Even if Will Wagner goes out and hits 270 with a 700 OPS, I think people are still going to be disappointed from that small sample size. But it's been another thing that's been similar as well between these two teams is that there has been this notion of a distraction within the clubhouse amongst the team's superstars. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a lot different because it's a contract extension. Rafael Devers obviously not wanting to play DH, wants to be a third baseman. If you've watched the Boston Red Sox, Rafael Devers, very good hitter, not a very good defender whatsoever. You go and sign Alex Bregman, who just won the Gold Glove last season. You would think he would be playing third base right now, slotted as their second baseman. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has kind of said this in the past as well, that he prefers to play in the field. He prefers to play first base, third base, whatever it is, because it helps him keep mentally dialed. It helps him keep engaged in the baseball game. For this Rafael Devers situation, I just want some quick comments on this. Do you think this is more of a Rafael Devers problem? Do you think this is a team problem? Who do you think is in the wrong with this DH situation in Boston?
This is 100% a Rafael Devers situation. Whereas I think the gray area with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. surrounding this contract and what the team is it's a little bit on both sides, right? I think both sides could be doing something better to help this as a team. Whereas when I look at the Rafael Devers situation, I really think that this guy just isn't a team player, isn't wanting to do whatever it takes to win. It's a lot about me. And is that a guy you want in your clubhouse? Yes, he's a great baseball player. But if there is a little bit of turmoil, and Alex Bregman's been so great commenting on this situation when he's talked to the media, talking about, I'll do whatever, I'll play wherever, you point in the direction, that's where I'll go. And that's a guy that's been around a winning culture before and being a part of something that, he's willing to do whatever it takes. He wants that championship. Everybody wants to win, but some guys are way more in it for themselves than they are for the team. And I think Rafael Devers really is, I hate to say this, but all about himself.
I think that's a little bit bold to say, but I don't think it is a good look. I'm saying he's all about himself. He's kind of like this notion that he's selfish. I don't know if I'd go that far.
What else would it be called? What else would it be called?
Again, there could be some underlying excuses. I do think there's some validity saying that, hey, if I'm only playing DH, I like being in the field. It keeps me engaged in the game. But I'm not sure if they've experimented with this DH stuff. So that would be one of my vices, is that if he hasn't gone out and tried to play DH. Because obviously Alex Bregman is the better third baseman. I think that is very easy to see. But if Devers goes and plays DH, but all of a sudden now he's hitting 230 and he only has 20 home runs, whatever it is, he's not as engaged in the game, the production starts dropping because he's not playing at third base, then I think there could be some issues there. And I think you got to move him back to third base as well. But with a lot of these contract situations, a lot of these guys, when they're worried about playing in the outfield, they're worried about playing in the infield, a lot of the time it comes from a money standpoint where they're, again, if they're getting moved to first base, they're getting moved to second base from where they're at shortstop or third base, whatever it is, or center field, you get moved to the corner outfield position. You have these premium positions that are going to pay you a whole lot more in free agency. Whether if you're a third baseman, for example, going to free agency compared to a first baseman, traditionally the third baseman get paid more than the first baseman do. But Rafael Devers, 10-year contract, $313 million. For the Boston Red Sox that have all this expectation, for me, that you're not even trying to consider moving to DH or even moving to second base, just moving somewhere in the infield, because obviously you are not that good of a defender at third base. Just kind of the open-mindedness for me is a little bit of a red flag, but I don't think you could say that Rafael Devers is just full out selfish just because he doesn't want to move to that DH position.
Okay. I will. I've always been like this. I've been this guy that it's team first, whatever I have to do to help that win. If it's playing on our beer league hockey team and having to be a fourth liner because everybody's better than me, I'm accepting that. I'll eat minutes for the boys. If it's baseball where, I'm going to be put at shortstop, or, hey, this team is pounding balls to the outfield and they would need me to move to the outfield. Hey, my leg is killing me a little bit. Let me play DH this game, just be able to hit the ball. I know, Carter, you did that last year. You took yourself out of the field to play some DH role. You played one bag for us because you knew what position the team was in. I don't know. To me, that's a selfish thing to not do. Are you putting yourself over the team, or do you want to see your team succeed? For me, if you really want to win, you do whatever it takes to win. That's it.
See, I definitely get where you're coming from, but I would like to see the Red Sox at least experiment with this idea. Not necessarily throwing Rafael Devers at DH for the entire season. Maybe that is the best move for the future, but at the end of the day, you got to keep your superstar happy. If Rafael Devers is in that locker room, I don't think he's a locker room cancer right now whatsoever. But if you start going away from what he wants, and he's directly telling you, hey, I'd rather play third base, I'm more comfortable playing at third base, and you go against him and you have this superstar on your baseball team, that could lead to a lack of production when you don't have that confidence. You're not in the right headspace. If he starts being a little bit more negative in that dugout, not exactly getting what he wants, in the long term, you're looking for success. And yes, moving Rafael Devers from third base can lead to that success. But if he starts getting off of his mental and he starts not being as mentally focused as he was before because of some of this drama, then that is another issue that you will be creating for your baseball team. So I think it's just, for me, it's don't completely commit to playing him at DH, but I think you do have to experiment, especially when you're supposed to be a very good team this year.
Yeah, and you know what? If the team is willing to do whatever it takes, then that's fine. I think he is okay to ask that question or to say what his piece. I think it's selfish, but at the end of the day, if the organization says screw it, we want to keep this guy happy, Okay, that's fine. It's still a little selfish on his part to expect that, but I think it's fine. It's not going to hurt me one way or another. But actually, you know what? It's better for me. Keep him at third base. I'm more than thrilled about that. Selfish move on my part, but we could argue this till the day, the day is done. So let's take a quick break, Carter. Let's come back. Let's talk about the pitching staff of this Boston Red Sox team. Before we talk a little bit about Alec Manoah's injury, we went long because, me and you started yapping back and forth. Or this is what happens. We disagree on something a little bit, and then it's a 20-minute first segment. So we'll be right back after this break.
Today's episode is sponsored by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the most reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with their complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking to get an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, there's a promo code that is SH5 for 5% off your first order. That is SH5 for 5% off your first order. And that's at supplyhouse.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the energy of an MLS match, the chance, the atmosphere, the last minute goal, If you want to experience it all live, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever with last-minute deals, all-in pricing, and a lowest price guaranteed. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLS tickets. Plus, ticket prices actually drop as kickoff gets closer, so you can score amazing seats at a great price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. I've had tons of people come up to me asking what the code is, because $20 off anything is awesome. Game Time is the best place to go to get your tickets. I don't buy tickets anywhere else but Game Time because they do have the lowest price guaranteed. They have the all-in pricing, so I know what I'm paying up front. And there's no, shocking, an extra $30 on top of your order. Nothing like that with Game Time. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So, Carter, I know we still have a lot to get into, but let's try to keep this a little tight so we don't keep people here for 50 minutes. Let's talk about the starting rotations for both teams. Again, we're going to touch on the bullpens a little bit, but the starting pitching is where we want to focus a little bit of attention, especially after the offseason moves from the Boston Red Sox themselves.
Yeah, jumping right into the starting rotation of both of these teams. Obviously, the Toronto Blue Jays, but I'll quickly go over it just in case you forgot a name. Jose Berrios, obviously leading off. That was something that did come out. They did announce Jose Berrios going to be the opening day starter. They'd also announce Kevin Gausman as number 2. Made a lot of sense to us, whether it was Jose Berrios, Kevin Gausman. Those were the easy, top 2 starters that you're going to be rolling out. Then you got Chris Bassitt, and then you got Max Scherzer and Bowden Francis as well. Alec Manoah coming back, obviously. You got Jake Bloss in the system. You got some other guys that will probably make some starts as well. Ryan Yarbrough, Yariel Rodriguez. But going into the Boston Red Sox starting pitching, they have Garrett Crochet, Tanner Houck, then Walker Buehler as their number 3. Will be Brian Bayo or Cutter Crawford somewhere in there as well. Both of them supposed to open up the season on the IL. So will be Luke Giolito, who did not pitch in 2024. So that will be interesting to see how he can bounce back. And then they have Richard Fitz filling in until one of these guys does come back. First thing that pops out when I look at both of these starting rotations is I think that when you look at what the Toronto Blue Jays were trying to do, you hope that you can get a number 1 ace type season from Kevin Gausman. There is a little bit of uncertainty there just with the age coming off of a little bit of a down year last season. When you look at Garrett Crochet, you look at Tanner Houck, I think these guys are more of your traditional, can be that ace role. Like Garrett Crochet from the left side last season was absolutely disgusting. There is a little bit of an innings issue there, but that you can see a scenario where Garrett Crochet can be one of the best pitchers in the AL. I would be a little bit more favored to say that Garrett Crochet has a higher chance of winning AL Cy Young at this point than Kevin Gausman does. Tanner Houck, a lot of things can go right. But when you look at just, if you're looking for consistency, if you're looking for a safer floor, I would argue that the Toronto Blue Jays have a little bit of a safer floor with a lot of these pitchers. Looking at Garrett Crochet, I expect him to be good. I do expect Tanner Houck to be good. Walker Buehler came back from Tommy John last season. The regular season was not a very good pitcher. In the playoffs was very good. So obviously I'd rather have it that way, where you're good in the playoffs, not as good in the regular season. Obviously the wrap-up period there as well. Brian Bello had an interesting year last season where he had like an over 5 ERA pre-All-Star break, had around a 3.25 after the All-Star break. So what kind of Brian Bello are you going to get? Cutter Crawford could probably be a pretty good lower tier guy and like as a 4 or 5 guy in your starting rotation. But when you have Jose Berrios, I think you pretty much know what you're going to get from Jose Berrios. Chris Bassitt, probably going to be either a high 3s, low 4s ERA guy. Max Scherzer, if you get the starts, I think you kind of know what he's going to be. Bowden Francis, I thought we'd have a little bit more certainty. I think he'd be closer to a Brian Bello, where again had a 1.5 ERA in the second half last year. Was one of the best second half pitchers in the league, but to start the year had around a 5.55 ERA. So you're hoping you can get the second half Bowden Francis, but you're kind of expecting somewhere in the middle. So I think with these Toronto Blue Jays, just the veteran presence that you have in the starting rotation, I think you kind of know what to expect a lot more with this Blue Jays starting rotation. Well, again, when you look at the Boston Red Sox, they have a top 3 that can be very good in the AL, one of the best top 3s in the AL. But you also have it where a lot of these guys cannot kind of go up to their production. And that's where you can get these 90, 95 win teams or a Boston Red Sox team that wins 80 to 85 games.
Yeah. And obviously, like, I think Cutter Crawford is a great, like, 4-5 pitcher. I think he's really good. I really like the stuff that he has. I just think that that's what he is. He's a 4-5 guy. So getting him back into that rotation is going to be big for them. Brian Bello, like you said, I mean, again, we'll see what he can bring to the table, but that's exactly, you brought up the point about Bowden Francis. That's a great point. Can Max Scherzer stay healthy? How is Alec Manoah going to be when he returns? So I think both the top 3 in each of these rotations are both very good. Yeah, I think it's pretty on par. You may like the Blue Jays better just with you talked about a veteran presence that they bring, and you sort of know exactly what you're going to get out of the top 3. Even Chris Bassitt won't shock you. You're going to know exactly the type of pitcher he is. So this takes me to the Boston Red Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays as a whole. I think the pitching staff is pretty similar. And I think the Boston Red Sox lineup is just a little bit deeper. So I think as I look, the Boston Red Sox overall are a better team. But I think there is a lot of question marks still surrounding this Red Sox team. So you talked about it. You could see it going really well, or you could see it, them sort of being in the mushy middle. And I think that's where the AL East is this year. I don't see a massive number 1 that I'm going to be like, yep, that they're going to finish 1 for sure. The Yankees got injury troubles. The Orioles have no starting pitching. The Red Sox are still a question mark. And the Tampa Bay Rays, we'll talk about them coming up. They're the Tampa Bay Rays. So whatever. And the Blue Jays, also a lot of question marks. Can all the guys show up? Who's going to have bounce back years? It's going to be crazy. I think this is going to be a super, super exciting year, specifically for the AL East. I guess, Carter, before we hit into the third segment, any sort of final look at these two teams sort of in comparison?
I think for starting rotation, you said you might slightly give it to the Toronto Blue Jays, or at least they're close. I think I'm going to give it to the Red Sox here. I think, again, you get higher upside. You got guys that were just better last season. So if you're going off just a lot off of last season, what they can do this year, again, baseball fluctuates. Some people can have good years, they can have down years. And it's not going to be exactly the production they had last season, but Garrett Crochet looking at the top of that order, Walker Buehler, and then obviously you have Tanner Houck there as well. I think just those 3 give me a little bit more hope than the Toronto Blue Jays do, especially when you have this Max Scherzer right thumb soreness coming out. You have this Bowden Francis where, again, we're seeing him kind of be a little bit of this little bit of inconsistency early on. Not exactly what you want to see. So I'm going to give the slight edge to the Boston Red Sox here as well. But we still haven't gone over their bullpen. We're going to push that into the third segment. I think there's some interesting topics here. Obviously, the Boston Red Sox got Aroldis Chapman. That's going to be something that we talk about in this third segment. Much more we want to come at you guys with. So we're just going to take a short break, and we'll hit you with some more Boston Red Sox versus Toronto Blue Jays news coming up.
Today's episode is brought to you by Just Ingredients. When it comes to fueling your body, quality matters. That's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high-quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. Just Ingredients offers an NSF-certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre-workout, and creatine. Listen, I got the, what is it called? Strawberry limeade pre-workout. It's unbelievable. Tastes great. I got the chocolate protein. It's so nice. It's easy to get down. It tastes great. Some proteins I always had that problem with. Some of them just taste horrible. This one tastes great. I'm telling you guys. All religiously tested to ensure that they're free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. Just Ingredients has also partnered with two-time MVP Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF certified sports line to fuel his training and recovery. Visit justingredients.us/Bryce Harper and use code LOCKEDONMLB for 20% off your order. And for more wellness tips, follow at just.ingredients on Instagram.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
So, Carter, as we continue on, we'll talk about these two teams' bullpen. We got to talk a little bit about Alec Manoah. We might push that over. I think we got to touch on it, though. Let's touch on it, but let's start out with the bullpens, Carter. I know you were taking a look at them. You found some guys that you were specifically interested in. I think the big one we got to start with, though, is the Aroldis Chapman signing from this Boston Red Sox organization.
Yeah, Aroldis Chapman, one of the best hard-throwing lefties still in the league. A guy that is at age 37, but still throwing the fastball hard, 98.7% average last season, a 37.1 strikeout rate. That's definitely going to play in any bullpen, especially when it's a left-handed bullpen arm. The Toronto Blue Jays would kill to have a guy like Aroldis Chapman throwing 98.7. Instead, we have Brendan Little, kind of a ricochet shot here, throwing, 93.5. But again, still going to be an effective closer. He's probably not up to that of Aroldis Chapman. Liam Hendriks coming off a little bit of an injury last year as well, 36-year-old, so another little bit of an older guy in the bullpen, but we have seen, obviously, these older guys have some success. Blake Trinan, very good last season. A guy that keeps getting linked to the Toronto Blue Jays, David Robertson, another guy that was pretty good last season as well. So there's a lot of guys with this Boston Red Sox bullpen that, again, you're looking at this age, and is it going to be a problem in a decline for some of these guys? Aroldis Chapman can have some command issues from time to time as well. Right now, they have Liam Hendriks as the closer. I think if you're comparing Liam Hendriks to the Jeff Hoffman that we have with the Toronto Blue Jays, I think that's night and day. I think Jeff Hoffman at this point in both their careers is miles better than Liam Hendriks is. So I think you got to give the advantage there. Justin Slayton going to be another great guy for the Boston Red Sox, having a breakout year last season. Garrett Whitlock could be a multi-inning guy, kind of the same role that we thought Yariel Rodriguez might have, maybe a little bit more consistent as well. But when you look at the bottom of this bullpen with the Boston Red Sox, there is a lot of guys here that, again, there causes some questions. There's Luis Guerrero, who I don't know a ton about him. I know he throws very hard, but a little bit wild as well. Adam Ottavino, veteran, coming back there as well. When you look at the Toronto Blue Jays, if you have a healthy bullpen, which is a big if, when you got guys like Erik Swanson, Chad Green, when you have Nick Sandlin coming in, you have Yimi Garcia, I think the Toronto Blue Jays have a little bit more options when it comes to depth in their bullpen, and I think that they actually match up a little bit better at the top of their bullpen as well. Maybe that is a little bit of Toronto Blue Jays bias coming in. But looking at some of these names in this Boston Red Sox bullpen, Justin Slayton, again, is a guy that does scare me a little bit. Aroldis can still be effective from there, but when I look at the depth from the Boston Red Sox, if you can get some of these guys to throw a lot of pitches early on in the series, I think that the Toronto Blue Jays can do a lot of damage as the games progress.
I 100% agree. I don't love this bullpen. Liam Hendriks, question marks around him with his age. Can he bounce back? The Aroldis Chapman part of it, Carter, no disrespect to him. Awesome piece for his entire career. I've loved him. I've hate having to watch him pitch, but he is great when he faces the Toronto Blue Jays. But he's getting up there. The command is a big issue. You don't know what he's going to throw. Like I've seen him plunk guys, and goodness gracious, getting hit with that fastball must just destroy guys. So, but great piece from the left side, Carter. That's something that the Blue Jays, like you talked about, don't really have, and a lot of teams don't. So a plus there. But overall, this Blue Jays bullpen is just, I don't even think it's better. I think it's a lot better. Just a lot more stable pieces. Even if you take the Yariel Rodriguez's out of it, and if you just look at the Yimi Garcia, Chad Green, Erik Swanson, Jeff Hoffman, even just those guys, and that's not talking about the upside with Nick Sandlin or the Ryan Yarborough or whoever you want to throw, I think the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen just is better by a decent margin.
Yeah, and they're going to need it to be better if they want to beat out the Boston Red Sox in the standings. So we kind of went through the batting order. We think that the Boston Red Sox definitely have the edge there, especially with some of the guys that can make an impact on this team. I think the Toronto Blue Jays starting rotation is pretty underrated, especially when you're looking at some of the rankings that a lot of other teams are doing on the Toronto Blue Jays. There is, again, you're hoping for some bounce backs. I think this starting rotation does have a pretty good floor, but when you have these veterans, you have these guys getting older, injuries do become a little bit more of a concern. So that is going to be something to monitor as well. And the last thing I wanted to go over between the Boston Red Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays is just how they have matched up against each other over the last 3 seasons. So as we know, the Toronto Blue Jays in 2024, not very good in general, but really not good against the AL East. They did not have a good record against any AL East team. Lost 8-5 in their 13 games against the Boston Red Sox, only winning 5 out of 13 games in 2024. Not exactly going to play. Boston Red Sox had their number again in 2023. This is more manageable. If you lose 7-6, if you go 6-7 against Boston Red Sox, you just do want to go over 500, obviously, but this doesn't hurt you in the long run. And then 2022, where we had a lot of fun against the Boston Red Sox. Raimel Tapia grand slam. I think it was a 27-5 game that was a part of as well. Toronto Blue Jays go 16-3 against the Boston Red Sox in 2022. Sign me up for that. Obviously, the 13 games, you're not going to get that exact thing, but imagine you get like a 10-3 even. You don't get those 6 extra wins. If they go 10-3 against the Boston Red Sox, heck, if they go 8-5 against the Boston Red Sox, I think that is going to set them up in a much better position than it did last season. Again, time will only tell what kind of production are we going to get from the Blue Jays superstars. How are these young guys going to supplement this order? Is Daulton Varsho going to be able to bounce back? Is Andrus Gimenez, Alejandro, Kirk? You can go down the list. Chris Bassitt, Kevin Gausman, Chad Green, can he continue to do good? Can Erik Swanson bounce back? A lot of bounce back candidates for the Toronto Blue Jays, and that's why this team could be an 85-90 win team, also could be a 75-80 win team. You got to hope that it is the first thing. You got to hope that they can be a team that can compete for the playoffs. But I guess only time will tell, and they're going to have a big year to compete in a division where there's supposed to be a lot of playoff teams.
Yeah, and that's the one thing we talked about. You have to be good against your own division. Those games matter so much more. But Carter, quickly, let's touch on the Alec Manoah injury. He will start the day on the 60-day IL when the season opens. He did have some comments as well. I'll throw to you.
Yeah, so it's just about Alec Manoah and his progression. So his first time throwing off a mound in 289 days. Just want to make sure I had the days right. So just under a full year. But he says on the experience, it's been a whirlwind of emotions, but it feels amazing right now. And it felt amazing to see Alec Manoah be back on that mound, throwing a bullpen for the first time. And again, just under a year. How good does Alec Manoah look as well? This guy's lost even more weight. I think he might be, we've heard this a lot this offseason and throughout spring training that these guys are in the best shape of their lives. But I think when it comes to Alec Manoah, you can genuinely tell that there has been a lot of changes in his body, and he does look better than he ever has.
Oh, yeah, dude. He does look good. I got to give him full credit, whatever his offseason regimen was. And I think with a little bit, coming off of a bad season, going into then an injury, this guy wants to make his mark. He knows what kind of pitcher he can be. He's just got to get back there. And I think we all expect that he has the potential to. It's just, when or will we see that? I'm super pumped. When he comes back, the first game back, I'm going to be over the moon. Skylar Peters will be wearing his Alec Manoah jersey out proudly. We a lot more coming for you guys in the next few days. But, I think we've held you guys here long enough with me and Carter debating random stuff. So we'll let you go on this. We'll be back tomorrow with more Blue Jays updates. We got to talk Daulton Varsho and sort of, our top 10 Blue Jays. We got to continue on that series. We only have a few episodes left before opening day, and we have a lot planned in those couple days. So Carter, anything before we kick out of here?
We brought up that Aroldis Chapman did not have very good command last season. He was in the first percentile in walk rate. It was at over 12%. I have it here at it was at 14.4%. So clearly this guy is walking a lot. Just wanted to throw that in there. Forgot to throw that in from before. But just leave your opinions, leave comments on, do you think the Boston Red Sox will be better than the Blue Jays? Do you think the Toronto Blue Jays over exceed expectations and do better than the Boston Red Sox this season? Where do you have the Boston Red Sox finishing in the AL East compared to the Toronto Blue Jays? Who has a higher floor? Who has a little higher ceiling? Just give us your overall perspective on how do you think the Boston Red Sox are going to do? How do you think the Toronto Blue Jays are going to do? and how you expect them to compete against each other this season. I want to say thank you guys for watching. The likes, comments, all the support recently has been much appreciated. We have noticed a ton of you guys are not subscribed. Helps us out a ton if you guys subscribe, and we appreciate it a bunch. Also keeps our podcast shorts, whatever it is, at the top of your For You page. But other than that, we're just continuing to get closer and closer to opening day. If there's the day that this podcast released, we are 9 days away, almost a week away from opening day baseball, having the games matter once again, and seeing a team be put together that we might not see. We might see a lot of changes in over the next coming season. So enjoy it while it lasts. Enjoy it while it is in front of your eyes. One more time, thank you guys for watching, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow.